Okay, let's get started today. Got a small class this morning. I didn't send out a reminder this week, so I'll make sure everything gets posted on YouTube. Everybody will get a link, so we'll follow up on the video for future reference. Today we're talking about trimming for control turns and trimming for knife edge flight. When we talk about trimming for control turns, what we're seeing is many times when we take especially a high wing plane, especially Cubs are notorious from this, the way they're set up, is that when we try to do an aileron turn, we get something like this. The tail drops, and we got adverse yaw. The plane wants to point in the opposite direction of the turn that we're making. And that's really called adverse yaw. And so what we're talking about today a little bit is, what is adverse yaw, where does it come from, and then how do you counteract for that? Basically, if you take a look at this picture, adverse yaw, anytime we create lift, we create induced drag. It just comes with the picture and there's no way we can get around it. Now we got an airfoil that's flying along fairly straight, and we want to put some lift on that, so we drop an aileron so that we want to roll this plane up. When we do that, we got a couple of forces acting. We've actually got a force that kind of points this direction, and that force is composed of two components. There's a vertical component that wants to make us lift, and there's a horizontal component that wants to make us in the opposite direction. This is the drag component. You add those two together geometrically, and you get this force line, which causes my airplane to kind of lift up like this. So when we drop that aileron, the lifting wing now has some adverse yaw to it, or it has a drag component. We've induced some lift, or we've induced some drag. So what happens when we want to turn this way, we lift this wing now has lift, but it also has drag, so it wants to pull the airplane in this direction. So what we have to do to compensate for that is we need to eliminate that adverse drag, or we need to put in some rudder to compensate for that, or we can adjust the ailerons to compensate for that. So there's several ways to accomplish that. So the most common way is to add a little rudder, and that kind of brings my plane around and points me in the direction I want. And typically too, the plane will either rise or it will fall when you put it into an aileron turn like that, so we need to also adjust maybe perhaps with a little elevator. But that's typically the mix we use when we're talking about mixing for a controlled turn. Add a little rudder, add a little, or take a little elevator out of it, and now we get this, put it on the bank, and it makes just a nice, beautiful aileron turn, and we're back to the other direction. So that mixing is fairly simple, and we can do that in a number of ways, and I'll show you what it looks like on this plane. We can also compensate for differentiations in ailerons. It's called aileron differential, and what that means is that on this uplifting wing, we're inducing lift, and we're also inducing drag. On the downwing, we also have now the aileron on the other side pointing up. So to reduce the drag, which makes the drag makes the ones turn this way, we can reduce the drag on this side by reducing the deflection of the aileron. So we take a little bit of the drag out of there, we sacrifice a little bit of lift, but that allows us essentially the plane to turn flat. So, and I'll show you what that looks like on this plane as well. And I played with this a little bit and set it up to do a rudder and elevator control turn and a differential control turn. So if we look at this radio in this airplane, let me connect the battery. And I'm not on the flight line, so I'm only connecting servos. Stay up there. Let's get this boat.
Help. Hold.
Yeah, you can balance that out for the zoom. There we go. I'll just stick these in here briefly. If we take a look at this airplane, I've got a mix in where I'm doing an aileron turn. You can see my rudder adjusts a little bit, and the elevator adjusts slightly. So as it turns out, this one turns pretty flat. It doesn't need much up or down, but we could adjust that so that we can do anything with the elevator that we wanted to. So when I turn to the left,
There's 8 people and got 7 names.
I get a little rudder compensation. I turn to the left, and I can get a little elevator compensation. position.
Somebody signed on 0.
And that's just a question of the plane basically. Make a guess, put it up in the air, try it, and if it doesn't work, come back down and adjust. I always put that on a switch, so when I go up, all the trims are locked out, and I get it nice and high, then I'll flip that switch and kick in the trims and try it up nice and high to see where I'm going, so if I don't plummet or roll too quickly or something's going wrong. But typically, you're going to see a slow roll, or you're going to see a little bit too much yaw, or maybe not enough yaw, or maybe a dip, and then you can come back down on the ground, change the parameter a little bit, go up, try it again, flip the switch and try it again. On differential, what I'm doing is that now the ailerons are traveling in equal directions, up and down. If I kick in some differential, the down elevator is going to travel less than the up elevator. This one's going down less than this one's going up. So this one's trying to lift, but I'm going to take a little less out of it, so I'm going to take some of the drag out of it so I don't pull that wing around that direction. So if I'm turning this direction, I'll take a little bit out. Let's see if I got that. Take all those out. And when we get it up in the air, we will, oops, that's my crow. We'll show you what that looks like as far as putting in a different amount of differential and how it affects the flight of that airplane.
So you like to put them on your left hand there, the short switch for...
I just filled it in there because it was handy. This happens to be the one for knife edge trim. We'll take a look at that in a little bit. But let me go to the menu here.
So just, I want to make sure I get this correct. So when if you're doing a right turn, okay, so you want to do less on the right wing and more travel on the left
I want to
wing?
do a little less travel on this wing because if I'm turning this direction, this wing is lifting.
Yep.
So I'm creating lift, but I'm also inducing drag. So if I'm turning right, I take a little bit of aileron out of the left aileron.
Oh, okay, so I'm doing it right. Okay,
If I'm
that's
turning
what I
this
was making
direction,
sure.
and the same thing. So the wing that's lifting is going to create more drag.
Okay, got it.
So if my right wing is 100%, I set it up in this case, my right wing was 100%, my left wing was 50% travel,
Right.
which was quite a bit. Now, what you'll find also is that many times glider pilots will do the same thing, because if we dip a wing when we're trying to get thermals, we're losing everything we gain. So they want to create a very flat turn.
Yep.
So you can do that with rudder and elevator, but you can also do that with extreme amount of differential. It's usually 50% or greater, because with a glider, if I want to turn to the left, I create my differential such that maybe it's 75 and 100 or 25 and 100%. When I do an aileron turn, my plane does this. It doesn't do this, because if I do this in a glider,
Yep,
I'm losing
off you
altitude. I'm defeating what I'm trying to accomplish. So with a glider, I set up a huge amount of differential so that when I do an aileron turn, my airplane basically turns flat, and I'm still in a thermal. I'm still getting any lift I can out of the thermal. So you can play a lot with this this transition, but that's basically the concept. Is you can adjust for the control turn with elevator and with rudder, or you can adjust with it by making a difference in the travel of the ailerons. Either one works pretty well. A different plane may react differently to that, so depending upon what kind of plane you're flying, maybe one works perhaps better than the other. On this particular plane, I really couldn't tell much difference. The stick is just really kind of a nice flying airplane. It has a little, not too many nasty tendencies. So whether I did an aileron differential change or whether I kicked in some rudder plus some elevator plus and minus, it seemed to kind of have the same effect. It still turns pretty nice, and it's a stick, it flies pretty well. And we'll go over to the flight station and show you some of those things when we get up in the air. One thing too, there's something called a Frede aileron, and I mentioned that if I'm going this direction, I'm getting lift and I'm getting drag, so I want to take a little bit of drag out of there, and I can do that by taking a little less aileron. Some airplanes, and 172s, a lot of planes are like this, and we have basically my hinge for my aileron, and I have a knob so that when I do an up aileron or down, I have this thing that protrudes into the airstream. It's like a knuckle, it sticks down, and what does that do? It creates a little bit of drag. And if you look at this picture called the Frede aileron, you can see that when this thing goes up, I have a knob that sticks down a little bit that creates a little bit of drag. And what that does, it compensates for the drag I created on this side by creating lift. And this one goes up, and it also sticks a little knob now below the airfoil and creates a little drag on this side. So it balances that out. In a high-performance aircraft, maybe that's not good because then you're basically making your aircraft less efficient. But for that little bit of drag you induce based upon the other side doesn't really matter. It just evens out that turn and makes it much more stable. So you'll see that next time you see 172, take a look at the aileron. When the aileron goes up, there's a knob that comes down into the airstream, which creates some drag, so it makes that thing stop. So this side, I've got drag now that wants to pull me back this way from the aileron, and also I've got some drag that wants to pull back this way from that knob that's sticking down in the airstream. So now I get a nice controlled turn. Kick in a little rudder, and that 172 just makes a beautiful turn. So lots of tricks you can play with that, and lots of tricks that the aviation industry has played with that to compensate for that induced drag, because it's always going to be there. Nothing comes for free. If we create lift, we're going to create some drag. On knife edge, if you're trying to fly this on knife edge, two things usually happen. I get it in this plane, I kick a lot of rudder to try to maintain my altitude, and the plane either rolls left or right, sometimes severely, and then it pitches to the canopy or the wheels. So what we do here is that on most radios there's even a canned adjustment, which is a rudder to aileron and a rudder to elevator. So typically what I try to do first is to trim out the elevator. So if I can kind of get it going in a straight line, and now I'm going in a straight line by rolling, now I can start to trim out my ailerons, and it seems to be a little easier for me is to get the pitch out first, and then to get the roll out second. Because once I've got the pitch out, and I've got enough rudder to maintain a level flight, I can fly a long distance, rolling slowly. Say, okay, I know what I need to do. If I've got right rudder, I'm rolling right, so when I land it, I'm going to put in more left aileron, so I roll back this way. And eventually you get to the point where now I've stabilized my pitch, so I'm going in a straight line. Now I've stabilized my roll, so I'm holding that line, and I'm flying a nice, pretty knife edge. And you can do that with almost any plane. Cubbies are probably a little more difficult, simply because of the way they like to fly. This one fights you on it because it's a nice high winger. Typically, if you have a mid-wing airplane or a loading airplane, they're much easier to balance in a knife edge configuration, just because now your lift is more in the center of your fuselage. And when you're on edge, I've got basically two wings. I've got my fuselage and I've got my rudder. This is providing no lift. Nothing else in my airplane is providing lift except my rudder and the edge of the fuselage. And you'll notice that on some of the IMAC planes, the side profile is large, but especially on some of the pattern airplanes, that side profile is huge, or can be huge, because when they're doing those knife edge maneuvers, now they have a nice broad wing, so they can fly that knife edge very comfortably and very stable. So they sacrifice some drag because of that wide surface on the vertical side of the fuselage for the lift they get because of this big flat plane they've got flying over the knife edge. And for the pattern guys, they fly a lot of maneuvers in a knife edge environment, so that's much more important to them probably than other competitors as far as IMAC or some of the other areas, and that the pattern guys fly a lot of knife edge routines. I don't know if you happen to notice this weekend, but there were a couple of guys flying the top of the F3 Gold. It's just really a pleasure watching flying. There's one routine where they come to the top, roll into a knife edge, do a knife edge 45-degree line, come to the bottom, come right back up on a knife edge 45-degree line, make kind of a rotating turn here, come back down this way, do a full roll, come back to the knife edge, and do the same thing on the backside. It's really a pretty maneuver. And you can really tell too, when that plane comes down to the bottom on knife edge, he starts back up again, she's grinding for all she's worth. With wide open throttle, oh, come on, come on, come on, come on. And even these big planes with a lot of power, that's really a high stress point, because now you've lost all that momentum, you got to gain it back again vertically. But you're on knife edge, you don't have pitch. It's all rudder right now, power. Pretty maneuver. Those guys do it so well. Any questions about that? We'll go over and play with it a little bit. And if you'd like to play with your own airplane or play with your own radio, you can take a look at that pretty much any time. Again, I try to be out there usually on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and oftentimes on Fridays if I can sneak away as well, and always available. Just come tap me on the shoulder. I love to play with airplanes, so always interested in doing that.
Do they program that on a separate switch or just
on
the knife edge?
On knife edge, I've got that programmed on this particular switch. And that kicks in my rudder to aileron mix, and that kicks in my rudder to elevator.
Either way, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, it will be. You're right. Typically, the mix I have in this direction is different than the mix I have in this direction. Yes.
So you have two switches? switches or?
No, one switch.
Oh, okay.
And I have the two sides of the curve, which I can independently adjust. So this curve I may have 15% elevator, and this curve I have 5% elevator. And it just depends on the airplane. That's a good point. Take it up on one side, keep working on that one side.
So you're saying you put it on a three position,
One position switch.
and one's down, one's up?
No, it kicks in the mix to the elevator and kicks in the mix to the aileron all at the same time. So I'll go ahead and trim the plane out so that I've got the pitch out of it, I've got the roll out of it on this side, say, okay, that was good. And I'll take those measurements, duplicate it on the other side and see what happens. And almost without fail, I'm still going to get some pitch, but probably not a great amount of pitch like when I first started. I'm still going to get some roll, but probably not as severe as roll when I first started. So now I can fine tune this side. So I got one side of the curve for right rudder and one side of the curve for left rudder.
Oh.
And there's different parameters. And I can show you what that looks like to be less confusing perhaps. Let me pull that menu up.
I get that. Curve. It's like three positions.
Okay, here's the rudder to aileron mix. Kind of more visual. On the left side, I've got like 25%. On the right side, I've got 17%. So you can see the difference in the curves when I go one way or the other. It's following a different ratio.
You can do that
On every radio.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying.
Left of center, I've
So
got
it's just on one switch.
left of center. I got one multiplier. Right of center, I got another multiplier.
I wonder how those curves work. Yeah, that makes sense.
And the same thing, of course, when I'm playing with it, switch is off, get it nice and high, throw the switch, roll a knife edge to see what happens. Chances are the first time you roll a knife edge, it's going to severely pitch, it's going to severely roll. Well, concentrate on the pitch first, see which way it's pitching, come back down, and on the ground, when I'm putting that in to make sure I've got the elevator going the right direction, I put my multiplier like at 50%. So when I move the rudder, it's pretty obvious which way it's going. If you start at 5% or 10%, I move the rudder, which way to go. And if I put a large percentage, okay, it's going 50%, I know it's going that direction. So let's start at 10% and try that and see what difference that made. If that wasn't enough, come back down, put in a little more, maybe another 5%, maybe another 10%, maybe go to 20 and see what happens. Kind of work your way up to kind of compensate for what it's doing. But again, keep it on that switch. So as soon as you're through with that trim and you think you've got, okay, it's rolling right really hard, I'm going to come down, put a fair amount of roll compensation. Click that mix off of there, come back down, land lock it just regularly with it, and then go back up again and try again. So work your way in gently. Usually if you get one side, the other side's not going to be drastically different because it is the same airplane, but it probably will be different. But now you've got a small variation you can kind of zero in. And you can do this with any plane.
Would that explain
Anybody?
why a guy could knife edge
Yeah.
a lot easier going one direction than going the other direction?
If his mix is different, yeah, because the airplane will behave differently. Almost every
'Cause I
plane.
could do it going one way, but I really struggled the other way.
Almost every plane will be different.
Well,
on
maybe
the
it wasn't
right
me
rudder,
as
left
much
rudder.
as okay.
Some planes are pretty close. Typically, these guys fly in the pattern planes where they pay $5,000 for an airframe raw. Those are pretty good to start with.
Yeah.
And they've done a lot of design specifically for that. That's what they're zeroed in on. The Timber. Some of you guys fly the Timber? Wonderful airplane. That thing on knife edge, roll inverted, fly inverted, do all sorts of routines. That's a good airplane to practice with, probably putting it on knife edge because it will fly really a nice knife edge. As well as other kind of tricks and combinations. So let's break down. I'll go ahead and roll over on flight station 1. I'll go up and do a few things, and then if you want, you can take a look maybe at some of my curves as to what I've done to get there, and we'll take it from there. So.
Of course, that's not a Spectrum radio, right?
No, they're all the same. The curves are all the same.
Another question. You've been demonstrating. Do you have a switch to kill the throttle on that?
Yeah.
On electric?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now I've only got the servos connected. I've got a servo battery and then my power battery for the motor. Right now it's only servos. And on all my airplanes, especially on the gas as well. On the gas I have two kill switches. I have a throttle kill switch and an ignition kill switch. So I can always shut the damn motor off. And for electrics, for me, I always use this slide switch because I get used to that. So every airplane I set up, that kills my motor. Don't even think about it. So I would recommend the same thing. Every airplane you set up, put the kill switch on exactly the same switch because usually when you want to use a kill switch, something's wrong. and it's difficult to think quick. But if your finger says kill, kill,
Which one
kill,
have I
you know,
got?
you've got this one trained, you know where it's supposed to go to get that kill switch. Good, well, let me click down here and change up some things, and we'll go on over to flight station number 1.